This video is sponsored by Mark 7, shaping the future of all things car wash. Visit mark7.net for more information.
Hello and welcome back to Unscripted, Carwash.com's video interview series that connects you with market leaders. Joining me once again on Unscripted, we have Bud Abraham, a car wash and detailing consultant with over 50 years of experience in both industries. Bud, it's so great to see you again, and thanks for doing this interview with me.
Well, thank you, Rich. I appreciate the opportunity to give some of my 50 years experience in the industry to the newcomers, I guess.
And it's such a wealth of information, Bud, that we decided to break this interview up in two parts. So today's topic and part one and part two's topic will be on how to develop and operate a successful automatic car wash business. And one of the first things an investor needs when entering the car wash business, Bud, is capital, is the financial and monetary backing to start such a business. So what is the financial commitment involved in building an automatic car wash in 2021, Bud?
I think we have to be, how do we say it? I guess realistic. People think that you can build a cheap building, get a small car wash system, and you can be in the car wash business. And certainly you can do that. But I think when we're talking about the typical, 80 to 120 to 150 foot conveyorized car wash that's being built today, a person has to be realistic. We're looking probably, I would think with land in, it would vary depending on the area, but I would think with land, you're probably looking for an exterior tunnel today. You're probably looking at $4 to $5 million for land, construction fees, architect, building, equipment. That's a realistic figure. We build a car wash. I can say we build a car wash. A partner and I, a 100-foot conveyor in 2004. So that's 16 years ago. No, 17 years ago. No, let's say 17 years ago. We bought the property and built the building and equipment. All the fees was about $1.5 million. And I think today, realistically, it's probably 3 to 4 million for someone to do that. People just don't seem to realize the cost. And if you don't have the money or the collateral to back the loan, you're not going to get a loan from the bank or from the SBA. You've got to be realistic. You've got to be capable of handling that kind of a finance. I mean, even if you could finagle here and there, you still got to have probably 20 to 25% down to get the loan. So, I mean, that's still 25% of $3 or $4 million is a lot of cash. So
it's a lot of finagling.
Yeah, exactly. People got to be realistic. And I think that's one thing. I mean, I get people still call me now and again, and when they find out how much it is, they just are shocked. And it always bothers me that some people who are pretty smart, like I had a businessman who I think has done very well, and he wanted to build a car wash, and when he starts talking to me about it, he had no idea that it was that kind of an investment. So I think that's what I want to convey to people, that, don't even waste your time if you're not capable of financing that kind of a program. Or if you have a sugar daddy, that'll sign for you or something like that. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the realistic of an entrepreneur wanting to go and set up the business for himself.
Absolutely, yeah. And those costs obviously will vary from state to state, county to county, and obviously depending on the size of the operation you're looking to open. So once that money capital is secured, Bud, What are the pillars of a successful automatic car wash business today, in your opinion?
Well, in my opinion, these are things that I've always preached from the first day that I got into and learned the car wash business back in 1969 when I went to work for Hannah Car Wash. And they really haven't changed. I think the relevancy of these, as you call them, pillars, are still important today. I think once you've got your money situation straightened out where that's not going to be an issue, then the next thing is location. And so many people make terrible mistakes in the type of location that they pick. We've got to look at two aspects of location: the physical location and the demographic. The demographic is easy. We're simply saying you don't want to put a car wash in a low income area. That can really hurt you. You want to be, your ideal would be a location that was surrounded by upper income, at least middle class to upper middle class area demographically. Physical location is the critical one. You've got to be, car washing is an impulse purchase, meaning that people, while they might think in their mind, I need a car wash, all the statistics that I've seen over the years and the successful car washes that I've seen all relate to the fact that people, oh, I need a car wash, and they drive by the location and they pop in. And that's really critical. When you locate a block off of the main street, it's like a dagger in your heart. It could be in a shopping center, in the back of the shopping center. If they can't see you, you've turned car washing from an impulse buy into a planned decision. And if it becomes a planned decision, you're not gonna do anywhere near the revenue that you need to make to justify the investment. The location doesn't know the difference between a good location or a bad location, or as far as the investment's concerned. So it's going to cost you the same amount of money to build it off the main street as it would on the main street. So what we're talking about is a location that's very visible and very accessible, and that has a high traffic count. The higher traffic count, the better off you are, because if you're drawing from a percentage of the traffic count, then the higher the traffic count, the better off you are. So with location, again, it's physical location. Give you an example. You never see a gas station on a back street, or you never see a gas station on a less than favorable location. Typically, when I grew up, the only time you'd see gas stations was on one of the four corners of an intersection. And, there'd be Shell, Mobil, Esso, whatever it might be, but there were four gas stations on four corners. And that's because they understand that even though gas is a planned decision, oh yeah, I need gas, it works off impulse. And the same thing with all of the fast food franchises. They're right out on the street where people can see them, because your car wash building and your layout serve as a billboard for your car wash business.
Of course.
So once you've got that location, then what you want to do is what we used to call at Hannah financial engineering. And that is you do an evaluation of the site based on several factors that we developed over the years that seem to indicate the viability of a location. And you gave it a rating, say 1.5 down to a half point. And so you'd use that would give you then a number at the bottom of the rating sheet, and it would give you that number becomes a percentage. In other words, the percentage of the traffic count that you can expect that site has the potential to develop. So say it was 1% of 50,000 traffic count. So that would tell you about how many cars you're going to wash. You have the potential of washing per month. Then you convert that total number of cars to revenues based on, again, make it simple. If we were talking about a 3 car wash or 3 package car wash and exterior, a base car wash at $10, wash and polish for $15, and the works, which would be wash and polish and tire shine and whatever else you can drum up, and you call that the works. Maybe you sell that at 20. So you got 10, 15, and 20 for your pricing, and then you figure out a percentage of, and that's sort of a guesstimate based on what guys are doing around the industry as to what percentage of each package they would buy, and then you convert that to revenues. Then the revenues that you generate per month from the total number of cars tells you about what you can invest in the property. And we say, a third for construction, a third for building, and a third for equipment package, not counting the land payment, whether it's lease or payment. It comes out of the revenues of the car wash, so you don't include that. But I was saying in the beginning when I talked about financing, it was if a guy wants to buy his property, he's got to figure that he's going to spend, $1 million to $2 million for an adequate site. All right, so once you've done that and you sort of evaluated, this site's got the potential, then there are other factors that you look at. And one of them, which sort of is related to location, is layout. I've seen some great car washes, locations, beautiful building, visible, but it's confusing to the customer how to get into the car wash and or get out of the car wash. And sometimes the customer doesn't even know that. They come on the location and it's so confusing to them that they're frustrated and they don't come back. And
right.
the reason unbeknownst to them is they don't come back because it's so difficult for them to figure out how to get into the car wash and where to go. And people resent that. They don't want to think they're so stupid that they don't know where to go in the location. So layout is real important. Something as simple, again, I mention it for a newbie. You want to have a large stacking area. You want to get people onto the property. Even if they have to wait in line, that's not a problem. You want to get them onto the property. But I've seen car washes built where there's a stacking area for 2 cars, and then you're in the street. Or at the exit end, conversely,
not enough space
right there,
yep.
And the person now is waiting on a heavily traveled street to get off the property. Well, what happens? You got to shut your car wash off because this car is stuck there and can't get out. So with layout, not only do you have to make it easy for the customer to get into the property and know where to go when he's on the property, but you also have to have enough space to allow a stack up area and exit end areas, so there's enough space for people to get back out onto the street. I mean, I've seen a friend of mine had a car wash he could do nothing about. It was an existing location. He ripped it down to the ground. It was just an old beat up full service car wash that his parents had from the 1950s. He ripped it down, and the best he could do was maybe 2 car lengths before the cars were on the street. And the street that he was on, it was a corner, and both streets were heavily traveled. And he actually had to put one of his employees out on the street flagging traffic so people could get out of the car wash. And he got caught up by the city. The city somebody reported him to the city for illegally flagging traffic, and he had to stop. But he did such good volume there that he had to keep the cars moving. So that's really important, is layout. You know, and all these sections that I discover, pillars that I discuss, you know, can be expanded on. And if people want to call me or something and talk about a specific pillar, I'm more than happy to do it. Okay, the next thing is equipment. And, you know, when we're talking about a $3 to $4 million investment, this isn't the time to trip over dollars to save dimes. You know, people far too often in the business, people, oh, I can't afford that, or that's too much money, you know, but you can't afford not to have the right, when you consider everything else you're investing, you can't afford not to have the right equipment package. You got to be careful with the person, the person that you're dealing with in terms of choosing equipment, because a lot of guys have never washed a car that are selling equipment today. They've never washed a car. They really have. They're learning about car wash operations is just by the seat of their pants, by reading in a book, reading articles, going to seminars, if they even do that. Some of them don't do that. So you want to make sure that when you go to choose equipment, that you get somebody that you can really trust. And you need to ask around. You need to find out who people have used, who's good, and make sure that you get a good package. Then a good example now of what's going on in the industry. You've got the standard roller on demand conveyor, which, you know, it's been around for years, since at least the 60s anyway, or the late 60s. And that's been the standard. Well, now there are these belt conveyors, and they're a lot more expensive to buy, and they're a lot more expensive to install. They're probably not as problematic to maintain as roller on demand conveyors, but they offer so many advantages for the customer, you know, and it allows you to get cars through the car wash faster. You can go bumper to bumper because cars are not going to bang into each other. Because at the exit end, normally you have enough space where the car comes off the belt that it then can roll forward. So you know, there's just, it allows you to process more cars per hour. You have to look at when you pick equipment, you have to look at what you can afford, what your financial engineering tells you can afford, and, you know, and what the number of cars you're going to wash. You know, you don't want to have a 40-foot tunnel in a place where you could wash 15,000 cars a month or more. So you can't go cheap there. You got to buy equipment based on what the potential volume of that location is. And then you have to look at the cleaning conditions in your area. You know, what is it that you're going to do? Like Portland, we get a lot of rain and very little snow. Maybe, you know, like a few days a year we might get snow. And now Portland has finally got off the kick of being an environmental thing, and they are using salt now because to get rid of the ice and snow, because we have it so infrequently, and it paralyzes the city. But our area, the big problem we have is road film. For some reason, we've got a terrible road film. So a touchless wash, sometimes you'll see it'll wash if it's not properly balanced and you're not using the proper balance of chemicals. You'll wash all the dirt off and the car's still got the oil film. I mean, it's the strangest thing you've ever seen. So you have to kind of question that and make sure that you're getting equipment that's really going to get the car clean at high speeds. No, that's the other thing people don't understand. Because the car's got more brushes in it doesn't mean it's going to wash the car any better than a car wash that doesn't have it. It's all a matter of conveyor speed, even belt speed. You know, the faster the car goes through the car wash, the less time the brushes or the cleaning material has to work on the car. So while you think you're getting a double hit, you know, the time is about half. between 80 cars an hour, and some of these new washes today are running 160, 200 cars per hour conveyor speed. So you have to understand that. You have to buy a big enough dryer to turn out a dry car. With an exterior wash, the customer wants a clean, dry car. That's what they want, a clean, dry car. So you at least got to get the water off the hood, off the windshield, off the back window, and ideally off the side windows, because that's what they see when they leave the wash. Do you have any questions on that? Anything that comes to mind?
No, it all makes sense. I mean, you for sure, you only get one shot at site selection, even site design, you set that up from the beginning and you got one shot at that. So it's important to get that right. With the equipment, obviously with advances, you have a little bit more opportunity to, to change that out as your car wash kind of gets established and grows. But I think you made a good enough point with having the wash and the equipment match the soil types that you're seeing at your wash, as well as the traffic count. So I think that's all good. Do you have any other pillars that you wanted to cover here in part
just
one?
One more, I think, for this session. But let me say about equipment. There's a mistake that people make when choosing, well, I don't need something that big. Well, like my friend who's a very successful car wash operator says, you got to wash cars when the customers are there to wash them. He does really high volume in an area where the weather, it's a rainy area. And so it rains a lot, but he washes unheard of volumes of cars. And that's the secret, that you've got to have a system that will handle the peak area, the peak times, not on average. But if you've got a chance to wash 15,000 cars in a month, that's what you got to equip for. Because if you aren't ready for that peak volume, your volume will always be like this, and it might even go down because people get tired of waiting, and you get a reputation of waiting, and you're in trouble. So all of these things that I've said up front are really important. It's not I'm trying to sell anybody too much equipment. I just don't want them to trip over dollars to save dimes. And a good example is the belt conveyor versus the roller on demand conveyor. I mean, it's probably the newest technology that I've seen in the industry in the last 10 years. I just went to the car wash show last week and I didn't see anything new. And nothing new. They changed the color. The big thing now seems to be signs. That's the big innovation in the car wash industry. All kinds of flashing yellow, bright red signs, and that's not technology. Okay, the last thing, then you've got all this other. You've got your car wash built. You've got it equipped, and you're ready to go. Well, what about management? Well, the secret, what you're going to find is the secret to a successful car wash is the management. So investors buy a car wash are never going to operate it themselves. And those car washes, many times they're suspect. I've seen a lot of big time investors build beautiful car washes. Within a year, 2 years, they get frustrated and they quit. They sell it. Maybe they make their money back, maybe they don't. But management's real important. So that means that even if you're an owner operator, and I don't think there, with a lot of these washes being built today, that there are really many owner operators. They're investor finance deals, or maybe they'll bring a guy in on a small percentage ownership, but they really are the owners. So he really is working, even a guy that's quote a partner, he's really working for them. And so they got to make sure, owners got to make sure that they get a really good manager. And that doesn't necessarily mean hiring a car wash manager, a guy with car wash management experience. because his experience is only good if you let him do what he wants. And what he wants is what he learned at the last location. Guys that are managers that are good are making good money. I mean, they're making, they're making close to a six-figure income if the owner is smart in keeping him on board. In the detail business, I definitely recommend never hire anybody with detail experience. You can teach skills, but you can't teach values. And so, that's what you have to look for. If somebody is good, they're going to be working in this industry. And the same thing, I'm not saying that all managers are like that. I think you can steal a manager, from another successful operation. But because the car wash business does require a knowledge of production, of hiring people, training people, motivating people, and reviewing people. And that's more important today than anything. If you read every article you read about how difficult it is to hire people, you've got to have that quality manager. If you're an owner operator who is really going to turn the business over to a general manager, then you have to remember one thing. As my friend always tells me, who's going to drive the business? Who's going to drive the business? If you think an employee, even an employee that might have 5% or 10% owner in the business, he's not going to drive the business like the owner is. The owner is the guy that I remember telling my wife when I first went into business, and I finally figured out why I couldn't get employees to act like me. And what I realized was they don't have to pay the bills. They're the last ones. The owner is the last one to get paid. They got to pay all the bills. They got to pay the 10% manager. And so, that's the frustration and pressure that the owner has. And that should be, it's a negative motivation, but it should be strong enough to make people realize that. So owners have got to take a responsibility to make sure that business is driven, and that you have a plan and you have a way of operating that you expect people to operate under. And then you've got to make sure that your manager is doing that, and he has to take his responsibilities. I mean, I had 2 detail centers, first class operations in auto malls, great location, great, equipped, first class. There wasn't a detail shop in the state of Oregon that was better than the 2 that we owned, but I couldn't devote the time, owner management time, to the managers in order to make the business be what I wanted it to be. And that I learned that the hard way. And so that's what I would stress, to a developer, even definitely an investor type that's never a doctor, maybe, or some investors that's not going to be involved in the business. You've got to devote a percentage of your time to that operation to ensure that the manager is doing and that he's rewarded. You got to set him up on an incentive plan so that he's rewarded for high volume and low labor, because those are the 2 killers in the business. Is labor. For sure. Labor is the highest, even in an exterior where there aren't many workers. You still got labor, and that labor is going to make the difference in the success or failure of a car wash.
For sure.
So that, I think we could end right here for part 1.
Okay.
Part 2, I'll talk about personnel and some of the marketing aspects of a successful car wash.
All right, sounds good. Well, we thank everybody for watching part 1 here, and part 2 will be along shortly. Bud, we look forward to it, and thanks for going over some of these pillars, and look forward to hearing more in part 2.
Thank you, Rich, and I look forward to talking to you again and being with you.
This video is sponsored by Mark 7, shaping the future of all things car wash. Visit mark7.net for more information.